Chris, we'll jump over to you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been in situations where there were unexpected impacts to a budget, but there's a way that you got to bring everybody in the loop, and you bring even if you're trying to figure out if it's going to be as bad as you think it's going to be, don't wait until you figure out that it is. And so, hope is not a strategy, and hoping that the budget would actually not be as bad. Hoping that the team might figure out a way to, make that 2.9 billion a little bit more palatable. It just seems to be, we used to call it in Army a little bit of the greasing of the skids that was needed here, and didn't appear that happened. And we spoke earlier about the impacts of that and the impact on building trust, and yes, it is political, but I could totally understand why Tuberville and Rand Paul and anybody on any side of the aisle would be throwing up the WTF flag, right? Randy, what do you think?
Yeah, let's back up a little bit here. I'll give you my personal take. Both you jump in if I'm getting this wrong in your opinion, but this is a series of dominoes that have fallen, that have gotten to this point, right? So going back a couple of years in time, we have, the PACT Act that drops. The PACT Act comes with, certain benefits, presumptive positive, all of these things, right? And then there is a window of time. So PACT Act is signed. There's a window of time looking forward into the future in which you can get your benefits back to the beginning of the PACT Act. And then there's this little thing called intent to file. So if you drop that before the deadline, it extends it out even further. That gets you to right about where we're at right now. This is the time frame in which the last of the intent to files for the PACT Act are coming up and expiring. So over this period of time, the several year period of time, you have all these people that have raised a hand and say, hey, I want these benefits, and rightly so, because the PACT Act is addressing a very serious problem, and I think it was good legislation. But what that did is it caused a ramp in usage, a ramp in contact with the VA, people coming into VA health, people applying for benefits, on and on and on. That was entirely foreseeable back when the PACT Act was signed. Remember, going back, what was it, Jason? We're back in August of 2022, I think, is when the PACT Act was signed, right?
Yeah.
So let's go even further back before that, when the legislation, there was quite a long period of time where that legislation was negotiated. So, they knew what was going to happen once that legislation dropped. Then the legislation dropped. Then the window, to get the benefits ended in August of 2023 that were retroactive all the way back to the beginning. And then you got your intent to file. There has been like 3 or 4 gates here, guys, where, the VA knew it was coming. The VA knew it was coming when the PACT Act was, negotiated. The VA knew it was coming when the PACT Act was signed. The VA knew it was coming back last August when, that first cutoff happened. And the VA knew it was coming, here in August. But it's too late now. Now they're raising a flag and saying, oh, crap, we've got a serious budget shortfall because of increased contact, increased usage. On our last episode, we went through the whole, laundry list of excuses that are out on the table right now. And I'm not going to go through that again. But the point that I'm trying to make is this was foreseeable. This was a knowable outcome. And so Paul and Tuberville, regardless of what your political beliefs are asking questions from a rational place. Why are we here when we knew this was going to happen? And I don't begrudge them or I'm not angry that they're asking these questions and want to know what in the hell was going through the minds of the folks over at the VA or anyone that was, cooking this into the budget that was passed, way back when. So that's my take. It's just, guys, there's a lot anxiety in the veteran community is on the way up. And, there's a lot of folks that are worried about the direction of this department. And I know over the years, there's been, stuff all over the map, but there has been a serious number of major missteps, lately, and not small, but big ones. And we're not getting a lot of accountability. And I know it's an election year and this is not a sexy topic to cover. And so the mainstream media isn't talking about this, but it is a serious problem and there needs to be some accountability, and this can't keep happening. We cannot keep every year when we know our budget we're going to need more, and we just ball it up. We cannot keep having this happen.
Randy,
I'm sorry, I'm on a roll. I'll turn it over to you.
I'm gonna keep you on the roll. Throw your CFO hat on, and so let's say I'm the secretary of the VA, and I'm coming. Like, what are some of the things that you liked to see when you were doing CFO work that showed people that they were operating in good faith? For example, they knew a long time ago that this could be 1 million or more people claims. They also could probably make some level of projection based upon data that they have on how much these claims would cost. And they probably, I don't know how much money was funded originally when the PACT Act was signed, but they got something, I assume. And like, wouldn't you expect that they had a model that said, hey, if we end up with 1.5 million, here's what we think we're going to need. And some of those things, some of those gates get somewhat pre-approved, if you will, right? So if you were the CFO of Congress here, and you had the secretary of the VA come in and saying, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to be $3 billion more in the hole. Like, what would you expect from that person to make this not roll out the way that it's rolled out?
So inherently, a good CFO is a good financial data storyteller. And they want to be forward-looking as well as rearward-looking. So, a good CFO is going to look at past historical data that is as accurate as it possibly can. And then they take that and they tell a story about where the company, organization, nonprofit, whatever you have, is going. And you set strategic goals, and then you figure out if you can financially get there within reason based off of the CFO and his team or her team's data storytelling. The concern that I have here is this data was available, at least somewhat, within reason. There was a knowable outcome from when the PACT Act was signed regarding how many folks within, a quarter of a standard deviation or whatever it may have been, were going to sign up. And then to Jason's point earlier, there's an impact on claims, there's an impact on VA health, there's an impact on the VA workforce. All of those things are knowable, right? They know the average size of the claim here. So I don't expect them 2 or 3 years ago to know an exact number, but I think they should be able to get within a reasonable benchmark, and they're not there. I mean, they missed it by a mile here. And, frankly, if this was the private sector, anybody that put together these forecasts would be done. I mean, they would not have a job. The miss is just too big, and there has to be accountability. So that's my answer to you, Chris. Jason, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah.
I've been on a tear here.
Yeah. No, I love it. So I'm going to throw this in there, and I'm going to condense it. Okay. To your point, there has been a calamity of errors. I've rattled them off before as well. Big, not small little things, big things that leadership should be questioned about, probably 4, 5, 6 things over the last 3 years or so. And I preface it with this because one of the most recent quotes, and I'm going to have to paraphrase it, I don't remember it, from the VA secretary regarding this current $3 billion shortfall, when asked, so what sort of contingency plan do you have in place? Well, we don't really have one. We're really just focused on getting the money. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly why all these other 6 things happened, because you didn't have a contingency plan for any of them. You hoped for number 1, and it didn't happen. And then you ended up with all these other problems. And so here we are with there's only one way out, and they have no clue how they're going to deal with it any other way other than to get bailed out, essentially. So, and again, do I think it's going to happen? Sure. But it's just the mismanagement of it all. This should have been a discussion 4 months ago, 5 months ago, not last minute, especially prior to the bill, the Veterans Affairs bill and military construction bill, all that stuff getting finalized on the House's side, getting marked up on the Senate side. Then they come in and go, oh, yeah, I know we're a little late to the table, but we're short. It's unsettling. All right, let's jump back into this article and see what else they say here. All right, so the VA has said it needs Congress to provide about $2.9 billion in mandatory benefits funds for the fiscal year ending in late September. I don't know why they said late September, the end of September, as well as about $12 billion for medical care for the following fiscal year. The agency has cited the PACT Act passed in 2022 has been a key driver behind the shortfall, pointing to increases in enrollment and VA healthcare appointments and application benefits. Senators have discussed the prospect of expediting passage of the legislation, which addresses the nearly $3 billion shortfall, before they leave for August recess this week. But that process, also known as an omnibus consent, can also be held up if a single senator opposes passage. Senator Tommy Tuberville also said that he has a hold on the bill while pressing for a hearing. They don't want the VA to just walk away unscathed, just, another issue that gets, fixed because they can't manage it. It's sad when you see a department like this that has to be managed essentially by Congress. No, you should manage yourself. I mean, but to have the Congress step in and really figure out if you're doing the right things is ridiculous. So there's a quotation. I just want to know why. Don't send a letter over saying we need $3 billion. Let us know why you need it. Let us ask you questions on both sides. It's only fair, he said on Wednesday afternoon. Though he added he is supportive of overall of providing the funding to address the shortfall. And let's remember, this is taxpayer money, right? We want to make sure that these funds aren't being, look, they paid themselves, the executive team, $10 million. So who's to say they didn't, screw up somewhere, right? So the sentiment comes as more have also sounded the alarm over the issue. The problem is that if we don't get this solved very quickly, it could start affecting benefits in October. And so I'm very worried about it, said Senator Susan Collins, top Republican on the Senate Appropriations Committee, which crafts all 12 annual government funding bills. I'm also incredibly frustrated with the VA because they had to know that they were underfunding these accounts. And I just don't buy the argument that they had no idea that what's going to happen, right? She said that's just not possible. So it's a few quotes there. Let's jump through a couple more paragraphs and digest some of this. So veterans' compensation and pension benefits, as well as their readjustment benefits, could be delayed if Congress doesn't provide additional funding by September 20th, the deadline. So September 20th is the deadline. Collins joined Senate Appropriations Chair Patty Murray, Senators Brown, Boozman, Collins, Tester, Sinema, Moran, earlier in introducing this bill. The bill calls for upward of $2.8 billion in additional funding for the VA, appropriating about $2.3 billion for the Veterans Benefits Administration for compensation and pensions, as well as roughly $597 million for readjustment benefits. The bill also calls for the Government Accountability Office to review the circumstances surrounding and the causes of the shortfall and possible remedies the department may take in the future to improve annual budget submissions and prevent shortfalls, among other measures.